Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor of Ultiworld, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Raynor. It is Thursday, October 6th. And Keith, there's been a lot of talk this week about Victor Wembanyama. He is
now you're talking my language.
Oh, yeah. So, for those who are not deep in the NBA game like Keith and I are, he's probably the most exciting prospect in quite some time, probably since LeBron, and is everyone is expecting him to go number one in the draft. If he doesn't get hurt, I'm sure that he will. He's like over 7 feet and can shoot and can dribble. It's like a crazy combination of skills. You can check it out if you want to. Keith, I don't really think we need to talk too much about this guy himself. My question is, who are the greatest all-time prospects from Ultimate? Like, obviously, we have like ones we've talked about lately, but like, who are the hot prospects back in the day, and how do we ID great Ultimate players from a young age?
Well, I can basically only go back as far as like I was playing. I'm trying to remember if I remember hearing about, really hotshot high school Ultimate players of days yore, but there just weren't that many. Not that many people were playing in high school. So like, even when I came around, there weren't that many players. I know that like when I was first on Paideia, our star player was Julian Dahl, and I think a lot of people would have said that either he or Will Neff were the best high school player in the country. It was Will Neff's junior year. He was that good. So like those to me were hot shot prospects at the time. Maybe even fewer girls players because there just were not a lot of girls teams. Like Miranda, when she was playing with the Paideia boys varsity. So, you have to go even further. You can't even go that far back for some of the hotshot women's prospects, but there are like U20 players you could think of who maybe raise their star, but you really got to get to the modern era to talk about the people that have gotten the hype, because there was both the youth play and the hype machine existed, and we were certainly a part of that. I don't think there's anybody who can compare to the hype around Jack Verzoo. That is the LeBron comparison of our sport. This was a player who was the chosen one and lived up to the promise, right? Was a national title machine. So definitely that stands out to me the most. And then on the men's side, Liam Charles-Bowes feels like the most talked about prospect that I can remember. Is there anybody who you think was more hyped than Liam Charles-Bowes? He
got a lot of hype. I mean, it was very evident when he was in 9th grade that he was going to be a great player. But here's the thing. He is a great player. He was a great college player. He won a lot of titles. Does he have the same high ceiling in club? I mean, I asked that honestly. Maybe you think the answer is yes. But it's funny because you mentioned Julian Dahl and Will Neff. They were both very solid elite club players, but neither of those guys go in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, Julian was like a Team USA player. Yeah, he's a World Games player.
Is he going in the Hall of Fame? I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he has a candidacy.
He's probably not, but probably not going to make the Hall of Fame. I think he was a little curtailed in his career, but I think solid is probably not glowing enough.
I'm not giving him enough due. I mean, to be fair, like I'm a little younger than you, so
that's true.
But I think Orion Cable has also gathered some of the same amount of hype. Has a lot of talent. Trying to think.
There's one.
Chloe Hakimi
on the horizon,
right? Who is maybe going to make the U24 team. We're going to talk about the U24 tryouts today. She made the tryout list, and she's still a teenager. And I mean, Keith, she's probably going to make the team.
I think there is a 50% chance right now. I'd probably say around 50% chance that this 16-year-old makes the under 24 team and then plays on it 4 times or whatever.
I'm just trying to think, like, the thing that was interesting about Verzoo is that he clearly showed at the time that he was going to be able not only to be a great player with the skills, but also had the physical tools to be a tremendous athlete throughout the college division. Now, obviously playing in the women's division, has since transitioned, but it was just very obvious that they were going to be physically dominant on the field. And I don't know that I can say the same thing about all of these prospects that we're talking about. Some of them are very, very skilled players, and obviously you can succeed as a skilled player. But the thing that's interesting about Wembanyama in the NBA is that it's like this freakish combination of tools. And I'm trying to think if we've had someone like that in Ultimate. I'm not sure that we have.
I mean, relative to other people, I think Jack would probably qualify.
That's probably right.
I mean, Victor Wembanyama is still perhaps listed at 7'2", but most scouts say he's actually probably 7'5", which is remarkable in and of itself. Let alone that then he can do basketball things. It's really just an alien of a person in the best way possible.
I mean, I guess
I've been following him I've been aware of and watching highlights of him for 2 years now. So I'm very deep in the Victor Wembanyama game.
I will say this. I am fully aware that the greatest athletes are probably not going to gravitate to Ultimate. So we're not going to get people who are 7 foot tall and incredibly athletic because they could play basketball, or the 6'5", 250 people are going to play football or whatever. Like, there's much more lucrative ways to choose your sports options than Ultimate. So I just think it's pretty interesting, and it's cool to follow along with the kids coming up out of high school and like start to ID like, wow, they could be really good. And then you see them developing in college and think about, okay, well, could they become the next big thing at the club level? Late bloomer, but Dina Elimelech might be on this list a little bit. Didn't play in high school.
Prospect.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No arguments there. I mean, Dina Elimelech has had quite a rise. I mean, Claire Trope, maybe not quite. There was a lot of hype around Claire Trope entering college, but really has even surpassed that.
Oh, I think so.
Surpassed, I think, the expectations that were placed on her. So, Bo Kittredge, if you're talking about people who didn't start playing really until college, I may have told this story before, but told you Julian was supposed to be the best high school player in the country pretty much. And then we hear he goes to Colorado and doesn't win their best freshman award. Like, how is there another person who's a freshman better than Julian? And it was Bo Kittredge. So
that's so wild. I mean, that's the athleticism, that Bo had, because the skills were not there. That's not totally fair. Obviously, you have to be very skillful to get open in the way that he did and be as effective of a player as he was for so many years. But the throwing skills, certainly not there. All right. Well, let's dive into the show here. We do not yet have the Nationals seeding and pools, but we do have a full Nationals team list because the Great Lakes region finished up their tournament and everything pretty much went to expectations. In the men's division, Machine took it home, maybe a little bit closer than you might have thought in the final, 15-11 over Omen. Omen handily winning the second bid that they earned for the region. And then in the mixed division, Hybrid easily qualifying and Nemesis easily qualifying in the women's division. So Keith, we both picked all of those teams to qualify, and they did so. And so our field is set. And of course, now we await the seeding. We should get it early this week is what I'm hearing from USA Ultimate. So early next week. So just, after this weekend at some point. And it's going to be pretty exciting to see how these pools shake out. I mean, there was some surprising upsets at regionals. You have some teams that didn't play particularly great during the season, like Mixtape, that are going to be underseeded almost no matter what. And I think it's going to make for some spicy pools and also a very interesting version of #TheGame, Keith.
Oh, it sure will. I mean, if Mixtape is not on the top line, I don't know how they're going to be anything less than the most selected
it's
team.
An auto pick.
But it feels, I don't know how you're going to get them on the top line. Short of counting Worlds, I don't know how you can get them there.
I actually thought about this. If you count Worlds, there's still no path.
Wow.
There's no path.
World champion.
Who did they beat at Worlds?
Doing so.
They beat a bunch of nonsensical, international teams, and then they beat Red Flag in the final. And Red Flag is going to be one of the bottom seeds at Nationals. I don't see where you find the explanation for putting them at the top besides projection of how talented they are, which, yes, they could be projected to be the winners. They're probably the favorites. But the BFG win that they got at regionals is pretty much the only win of the whole season that really gives you confidence that you can seed them highly. And they have too many losses to too many teams.
And yet it doesn't matter. Great regular. No, I'm just kidding. This is the biggest example, but you do the seeding predictions every year, and usually pretty spot on. It's a little bit of art, but mostly science. And this year, I feel like you're having to stretch a little bit to make a little more art out of it.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we start in mixed? I mean, I think mixed is by far the hardest. There were just more upsets and surprises. And I don't really want to get too deep into the predictions of the seeding because obviously these aren't the actual seeds. But I have Dragon Thrust going number 1 overall. I'd be pretty surprised if it was anybody else. My top line pool 1 seeds is Dragon, BFG, Amp, and Hybrid. Now you might be surprised to have BFG be the number 2 seed, but they were number 2 in the rankings. They had a great regular season. They have wins over Mixtape from earlier in the year. And yes, they lost to Mixtape, but this is USAU does not overweight regionals losses anymore. It just doesn't happen. They've gotten away from that. Now, it doesn't mean that they couldn't make an adjustment here, but I would be surprising if they did because they usually are going to look at what did this team do during the regular season? And, BFG has wins over Hybrid and Polar Bears, who I expect to be seated ahead of Mixtape. I think there's a couple other interesting spots here. Certainly what are you going to do with Mixtape? What are you going to do with Toro? They finished 3rd in the Southeast, but I have them going at number 7 because they were ranked like right up at the top and they have some really good wins. They beat Noise. That helps. And, I think there's only so much you can do if you're going to follow the regular season. This is the point, right? You don't overweight the 1 or 2 games at regionals to decide all of the seeding. So other than that, it's pretty straightforward down the board. CLX will be the last seed.
A bold prediction. And that final one.
I don't know about that.
But yes. Definitely some tempting game targets should these seeds come to pass. And I do think that this is the hardest one. And maybe there's a conversation to be had about should worlds count? Should the seeding, like how should they do it differently? Like I know I've been pushing for a World Cup style draw anyway, but should there be weighting finals and semis in the algorithm, or should we rate regionals more? Like I don't know. Should we just be team feedback? I don't know. Maybe a conversation.
No, I think you have to find a way to make the regular season matter in these, right? I mean, don't we want that? Mixtape is complaining about their seat, and it's like, no, like then don't show up to Pro Elite and not play well and not bring all of your players. I feel like there has to be consequences for that kind of stuff. Otherwise, there's no point. You just go to regionals.
It's true, and that's the right that they feel like they earned. So,
Red Flag is going to probably be the 15 seed, and I mean that they're dangerous. I mean, they could also be a popular game pick. But they didn't play games, and that's where they ended up in the algorithm. It's like, okay,
I think that they will be a tempting one for a lot of folks.
Keith, I'm a lot more confident in my women's division predictions. I think these could be the actual pools. I'm going to read them off to you, and you can tell me which one you think is the pool of death. I would be surprised if I was off by more than about 1 pick here. Fury, number 1 overall. Traffic, Nightlock, Parcha. That's what I expect Pool A to be. Flipside, Sixers, Grit, and Nemesis in Pool B. Molly Brown, Brute Squad, Riot, and Ozone in Pool C. Man, that's some... If you go... Rewind like 8 years, and that is an insane pool. And then Phoenix, Scandal, Schwa, and Pop in Pool D.
There's some great matchups in every one of those. So I'm in if these are going to be the pools.
What's your pool of death?
That is unusually difficult. I don't know that there's one pool that seems like soft or one pool that seems really difficult. I know it's tempting to get into the brands of C. We also are so used to that 4-5-9 taking the top spot. I think that's where I'd go as the hardest pool, the 4-5-9. But it's by a very, very small margin, as small as any year that we've ever talked about this.
I think I'm going to go with Pool C, actually.
It's always one of those two, it feels like.
Reason being, I think Ozone could actually be the best 4 seed. I think Riot is going to be improved from what we saw like at Worlds. And then obviously you have Brute Squad, who they could be. I mean, how good are they going to be? They're going to be really solid. Like, they added a bunch of really good players for regionals and then beat Sixers. So, and then of course you have Molly, obvious championship contender. So I think you have 2 championship contenders and then 2 teams that are probably like amongst the best of their grouping in their range. Riot was not far off from Schwa at regionals. So I think that's the one I would go with. Because I think Phoenix is going to blow out Scandal. They did it before. I think they're going to do it again.
That's possible. That's possible. But Brute Squad, I guess if you're going to say it's regionals Brute Squad or even better, then that does sway things. And Riot Schwa is pretty close. I take Pop over Ozone. Maybe we'll get a little bet going about which one of those teams is better. Should the opportunity arise, we can think on that.
But like, what's the line on Molly Brute?
Probably Molly -3.
Oh my! Give me Brute Squad right now. I will give me Brute Squad right now. I will put real cash money on the line. I know Brute Squad had a bad pro champs, but I think that they are going to be a different team at nationals.
Yeah, but Molly had a great pro champs. As good as we've ever seen them look.
No doubt, but like, it feels like the world's worst matchup for Molly.
All right.
I mean, they were Brute was their kryptonite for years at nationals.
Fire up the Ulti-World Sportsbook this year.
Okay,
let's get it going.
It's time.
All right, in
Connecticut. Let's look at the men's division. Truck Stop's going to be your number 1 seed, folks. That's a lock. I can guarantee it. I have Truck, Ring, Machine, and Pony as your top 4 seeds. I was thinking Pony was going to get the 3, but Machine beat Pony during the season. As weird as Machine's season was, they still ended up highly ranked in the algorithm. And they have that head-to-head over Pony, and that's probably going to get them the 3 seed. And so, I'm mostly confident in these. There's a tricky trio in the middle: Rhino, Double Wide, and Bravo, who I have at 7, 8, and 9. Bravo's the highest ranked, but Bravo lost to Double Wide, and Rhino beat Double Wide. So I have, Rhino beat Bravo. So Rhino and Bravo are next to each other in the rankings. I say, okay, well, Rhino goes ahead of Bravo. That's easy enough. And then do you swap Double Wide and Bravo at that point? You kind of have to decide how much you're going to weight the head-to-head versus the win that Double Wide got at regionals versus Bravo's clearly superior season and higher ranking. So that's an interesting little spot. But then otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Pretty surprising to see San Francisco Revolver at the 12 seed. I think that's where they're going to end up. And, they're going to be a tough team, but that's just not the same Revolver anymore, Keith.
That's not as surprising to me as Bravo at the 9 seed.
That's fair.
I mean, I would have thought that, based on where they were during the midst of the regular season, they were in spot for like a top 6 seed. And a lot of it comes undone with that loss to Double Wide. I mean, Double Wide is the top 8 seed. Didn't have that in the preseason predictions.
Yeah, I mean, Pool D for me right now is Pony, Sockeye, Bravo, Condors. That is a extra spicy Pool D because Bravo feels really underseeded at 9. Again, it might not happen. Maybe they leave them up there, but they have head-to-head losses to both Rhino and Double Wide, so I could see it happening.
There's some spicy. Is anybody with these pools? You're like, okay, I gotta have them in the game. This is a lock.
Do you think Chain will have a puncher's chance against Machine?
Oh yeah, I mean that feels like the best matchup for them. Like the team that's inconsistent and loses weird games against the team that's incredibly streaky. Yeah, that feels like Chain would love to draw Machinist there 1 seed.
It's definitely a better draw for them than Pony. Maybe they'd be happy to get Ring again, but then again, maybe not. I mean, Ring has really owned them outside of this regionals win that they got for a long time.
Yeah, the very familiar foe.
And I think Chain definitely wants no part of Truck Stop. I think that's a bad matchup for them.
Agreed.
I think Truck would not get broken once.
Yeah, I think that Pony's probably their worst matchup, and then Truck might be their second worst matchup.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll get next week we'll be talking about the official seeding, and got some exciting announcements about video coverage and the rest of our nationals coverage. We got a huge team put together and can't wait to bring you all of the action from San Diego. Any final thoughts on potential, matchups at nationals, Keith?
Curious to just see the actual lineup. Looking at the bottom seeds, try and figure out who's going to be that surprise team. Are we going to get another year of chaos in mixed? And what the pathways are going to be like, because we've talked a lot about this year being a year in which there are just too many good teams for clear semifinal slots. There just aren't enough of those locked up. So matchups and the path that you have to travel to get to, a title is going to be huge.
Well, we're going to break it all down when we get the schedule on next week's show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking U24 tryouts. Yep, U24 is coming back next year. We've also got the Beach Worlds coming up, so lots more exciting international ultimate on deck in 2023. And the tryout lists are out for Team USA. We're going to talk about them next. Time to tell you about Sunset Lake CBD, a hemp farm located just outside of Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and in 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD. Sunset Lake CBD believes that their farm-table approach is the best way for you to get responsibly produced, high-quality CBD products that actually work. Sunset Lake CBD crafts topicals, gummies, oils, and more to help with stress, aches, and sleep. I know that after a good workout, it's awesome to use some of the salve and just put some of that CBD salve. It smells really nice. It feels really nice. It's like a nice lotion on top of also, of course, containing CBD. And it really just helps make your muscles feel better the next day. Couldn't recommend it more. Check them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com and use coupon code DEEPLOOK, all one word, DEEPLOOK, for 20% off all products. Farmer owned, Vermont grown. Welcome back to Deep Look. It's time to take a look at the under 24 USA national team tryout lists. 208 players will be competing, 104 men, 104 women, at 2 tryouts, one in Georgia, one in California in November. So we're only about a month and a half away from these tryouts and players trying to earn a spot at U24 Worlds, which will be held next summer in location unknown. I really don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be somewhere in Europe, but I don't know, Keith. It's not going to be in the U.S. I feel pretty confident about saying that. But
I don't know. It's the hot thing to do at your big international
Cincinnati.
Yeah, what's a Midwestern city we haven't gone to? Omaha. We're going.
Sioux Falls. So Keith, let's dive in. Let's take a look at these lists and maybe see if we can start to pick out some names that we think is going to make the team.
There's a lot of names. I'll tell you that, and even a few that like I'm like that person is ready to play U24, like ready to get involved, like it kind of snuck up on us.
I also feel like I look at someone, I'm like, wow, they're under 24.
There's definitely some of those.
So who stands out, Keith? Who are you looking at when you browse the list? Well, we have a searchable, sortable list up on Ultiworld that you can go take a look at.
Well, when you talk about that person's 24, the first person that comes to mind for you for that is AJ Merriman. Like, you think of U24 as being like this college ultimate centric thing, and that was not where AJ Merriman's known for, and then pops up here in the U24 list. That was the first name that jumped out to me, followed by, as we already discussed, Chloe Hakimi. I'm all aboard the hype train, so I'm so excited that she's going to be in the tryouts.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously lots of great names on the list, and it's kind of fun to sort by college too, and think about, oh, this team's going to be really good next year, or ooh, that team lost all of these players and are probably not going to be that good next year. But it's tough. Like, I feel like, so, if you assume each team's going to have 24 players, that means 36 men, 36 women will be selected. So it's approximately 1/3 of the players. And I feel like I can go through the list and pick out, a bunch of names who I feel pretty confident are going to make the team. So, KJ Koo, Calvin Stoughton, Aiden Downey, Hayden Austin Nab. I mean, is Aiden Downey a sure thing? Maybe not. Maybe a cycle away. Leo Silva Fernandez. I could go and do this whole exercise, and at some point we'll like write down our picks or go through it in a sub bonus segment, our out the back for subscribers. You can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at ultiworld.com/subscribe. You can do the same thing in the women's division, like Claire Babbitt Bryan and Marie Perivier. I mean, there's a bunch of locks. I think you can go through and probably pick about 15 players. You're like, they're definitely going to make the team. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, so there's like a bunch of players left for only 9 spots or whatever. And I got to say, Keith, there's a lot of players on both of these lists that I really am not super familiar with. And, maybe we're going to see some big surprises. I'm sort of unsure if it's like, am I not as in tune with the college division right now because we've had so many like 6th and 7th years around who aren't even eligible anymore? Or, are these players just getting an invite because they need to fill out these invitation lists and they want to get diversity from around the country? But I'm surprised about how many names I don't know.
I agree with you there. I mean, I feel like people would say I'm pretty plugged in with College Ultimate.
You are the most plugged in, Keith. You're number one plugged in.
People whose names I don't know. Like, they're not a lot, but there are a couple. I wonder if not only were those 6th and 7th years were like hiding good players, like turning some of the good players who would otherwise be stars on their team into role players.
Exactly.
That, maybe you didn't notice as much. There's also certainly there are young players on this groups too. Some players who like just played with the US under-20 teams who are going to be competing for spots. We talked about Chloe Hakimi in the women's division, but Elsa Waybright is in that group. Carolyn Stone. These kind of players are dotting these lists to just add another element of surprise. How are they going to mix in? But there's a really a wide swath of schools. Schools that you're not hearing a lot about. You got Matt Labar from James Madison. You've got Jeremy Koish from Indiana. Jacob Cowan from Grinnell. Like, these are not players you're hearing about, and these teams aren't necessarily teams that you're hearing a ton about. Gabby Enders from Thomas More, Lisa Hansen, Iowa State. Like, these, they're 2 NYU players, 3 Metro East players trying out for the women's division team. Let's go, ME. I love to see that.
Metro Beast, baby.
Yeah, we're back, baby. But it's definitely a bit strange. But there's a lot of names who I do recognize from, their club exploits or seeing them in semi-pro. So players are capitalizing on these chances to play more. And I think there always are some surprises. These are big rosters. They take a lot of players. There's going to be some players who people aren't familiar with who are going to get to shine on the big stage. And that's fun. On the opposite end though, like you said, there are some teams with a lot of players. How about the come up for Vermont?
Wow.
This is one of the other things I noticed. 6 players from the women's division team for Vermont, 4 from the men's division team, 10 players who play at UVM. Like,
I count 7 in the women's side, Keith.
7.
Yeah. Bethany Eldridge,
Wow.
Caroline Stone, Emily Pazzi, Kennedy McCarthy, Lila Bannister, Marina Godley Fisher, and Sarah Von Depp.
Wow. And what? One of those was a freshman and one is a rising sophomore. Like, Vermont Ultimate is a powerhouse.
So I'm going to hit you with some names, and I want you to just say they make the team or they don't make the team. In or out?
Okay.
In or out?
Okay.
Star freshman for UC Santa Barbara, Devin Quinn.
In.
Ava Hanna, UCSD, star, I think now graduated. Okay, that one was easy.
Lock.
Let's see. Olivia Goss for Tufts.
Out.
Okay.
I gotta
how
cut
about
some good players.
Maddie Simcoe from Grand Valley State?
In.
Ooh, that's a lot of in so far.
This is hard, but it's easy to say in.
It's a lot easier to say.
Well, I'm not looking at the whole list, so it's like.
Here's an interesting one. Has been hurt. Bailey Shigley.
Out. For that reason. Although I wonder, she must have said, I'm going to be healthy enough to try out, but I don't think she's playing this club season. I was such a big fan of hers when she was on the field.
I think she would have been a lock if she was, fully healthy.
At this point in her career, probably, yeah. With a couple years to develop, but she's missed a lot of time.
Couple of Colorado locks already for sure, though. Like Khalil Phillips and Stacey Gaskill, they probably don't even need to come to tryouts. They're going to make the team. I'll give you a similar one on the men's side. Calvin Brown from Cal Poly SLO, who's been out for a year.
I got to say out too for the same reason. I mean, he's not even playing now, I don't think.
I think if he can try out, I think he's in. He's that good.
How do you, he is that good, but I just don't feel like he could show what he can do at a tryout. And if you take him on the team, you can't be confident
it's fair.
He's going to be ready to go.
That's fair. Let me give you some more on the men's side. Chad Jorgensen from BYU, one of the Jorgensen brothers.
Ooh. I think they would love to get a BYU player in there, and he's good enough, but he's in that has to have a good tryout group. I'm going to say out.
All right. How about, I mentioned them earlier. How about Aiden Downey? We were talking about big prospects. He was one coming out of high school for Georgia.
Yeah, and he's had a good year for Chain. He's really grown up, I think, as a player. I'm going to say out.
Wow.
I
think I disagree. I mean, you just said it. He's had a good year for Chain. I mean, if you're playing high level club and you're clearly an impact player, I feel like you're almost for sure going to make the U24 team, unless you have a terrible tryout.
He is not the only player you could say that about.
Okay. Theo Shapinski from Michigan.
In.
Suhas Madaraju from NC State.
Oh, that's so hard. Man, I love his energy when he plays. He's guy's really good at a role. I've heard he's had a great season with Toro. Gonna have some tough competition. I'm gonna say out. Oh, that hurts. It hurts to say it.
Let me give you a UNC guy too. They have a bunch of guys here. Dylan Hawkins.
In.
Let me give you some more of them. Brett Smith.
People love him. That's Rutledge Smith. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, it must be. It must be.
Yeah, in.
Ben Dameron.
In.
Josh Singleton. I'm going to keep going. Josh Singleton.
Take them all. Out.
Matt McKnight.
In. I just can't. Josh Singleton's good enough, but I think you can only take so many UNC players.
Guys. Let's do the other ones while we're here. Bailey Roberts. Is that an incoming freshman, or do I just not know the name?
Out. Is it somebody who goes by another name, has a different first
Kevin
name?
Pignoni.
He's going to be right around the line. I'm going to say in. I think he's got the leadership qualities. He'll be a leader on the team.
All right. Okay, let's see. Let's get off UNC. Do a couple more here. Keali McCarter for Oregon.
Oh, I'm gonna go in.
Tristan Yarder for Pittsburgh. He's a U20 kid.
Yeah. Man, I feel like I'm running out of ins though. You know?
I'm trying to give you mostly borderline guys too.
I know. I'm going to say in. Yeah, I'll go with in.
Orion Cable, UMass.
In, I guess. In.
Kuchuan Ponzio, Vermont.
Out.
Let's do one more. Matt Chambers, Texas.
Ooh. That's tough. I'm going to go. Look, actually, you know what? It's not hard. I'm going out. Plays in South Central. USAU hates South Central. Easy. Easy money.
That's harsh but fair. All right. So more to come on this, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll have some coverage of tryouts and be able to talk a little bit more about what happens in November. It'll be in Atlanta and San Diego next month. So final note here on today's show, European finals happened last weekend, and some pretty exciting games. In the women's division, Shout beats Yaka, the Italians, over the French 15-9. And that was really the only game that was not close. The other two games were barn burners, and the Ranelagh Clapham game in the men's division is a must watch. 15-14, Ranelagh beats Clapham. Shock upset on Universe Point to win the European finals. And this has been like a decade that this Ranelagh team has been trying to build to this point to be able to take down this Clapham team that's been almost untouchable for that whole time. And they get the job done. In the mixed division, Groots beats Reading Ultimate 15-14 on Universe. Groot was the heavy favorite coming in, and Reading really made it a game, Keith.
They did. And it's exciting because I feel like Groot's been so dominant in Europe. It's good to see them have a real push from a team, outside of like South Bills. It's good to see them playing in the continent and really getting challenged.
I think it's pretty amazing to see just how much more competitive the European game is getting. And I think we saw like good results from the European teams at the World Games, and some European sides did a really nice job at WUCC as well. And I feel like the quality of the Ultimate there is rising. Now, it's still top heavy. You still have the top 2 or 3 teams kind of beating down everybody else. But, that's to be expected, and it's going to continue to improve. But, I mean, who would have seen Ranelagh over Clapham a couple of years ago? Never.
I mean, those Clapham losses are few and far between. And even the World Games, I think Europe acquitted themselves nicely. Like, obviously, Germany had a successful weekend, and, I think that the UK and France were probably disappointed in some ways. But I think they showed themselves to be in the neighborhood. Like, they could compete with the best teams. And that was not something I think a lot of people expected. A lot of people were really down on the European teams coming into the World Games. And that was kind of the first sign for me that, there could be some good things going on there. And, the U20 championships too, there were some good results to look at. So, I think that the European scene is certainly getting stronger. And I don't know if that's like part of a rising tide in international ultimate, or if they are, taking a step forward away from some of the other parts of the world.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nationals seeding and schedule breakdown coming next week. And then, of course, it will be our Nationals preview show the week after that. Make sure you join us for our Out the Back subscriber-only bonus segment, where we take a look at what a possible play-in tournament at Nationals would look like. This is something I wrote about a couple years ago, and we're going to look at what would this year's tournament look like and how might it work. So join us as we break down the 8 teams that would be competing for the bids. We'll talk about it all in our Out the Back sub bonus. Multiworld.com/subscribe to join us there. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Deep Look.